All right, the comment section has been blowing up. You've been asking me to comment on this one. Off-duty pilot who tried to cut a flight's engines mid-air won't serve prison time, judge rules. What's this all about? All right, back in 2023, a jump seater. So the jump seat is the third seat. Sometimes there's a fourth seat in the cockpit for pilots. I think some air traffic controllers, even some people from the FAA, are allowed to ride on the jump seat. The jump seat has a lot of restrictions with it, but if you're an airline pilot who's active and you've got an active ID and you pass through the CAS system, you can sit on a jump seat and you can commute. You can commute to work and various other places. So it's not uncommon to have a third or a fourth person in the cockpit riding the jump seat. What is unusual is that jump seater trying to down the entire airplane by shutting off both engines. As far as I know, that specific scenario has never happened before. There have been airplanes where the pilot has downed the airplane. I think of Germanwings flight from a number of years ago, and others more recently in the news. But this is a former Alaska Airlines pilot who tried to cut off the engines of a passenger flight in 2023 while riding off-duty in the cockpit. He will serve no prison time. I'll give you my thoughts on that in a minute, because it's not as simple and straightforward as you might think. It's more nuanced than that, but I have some thoughts on this for sure. A federal judge ruled Monday, bringing an end to a case that drew attention to the need for more mental health support for pilots. I am all in favor of having an open discussion and putting more resources into the mental health discussion for pilots. I had Charlie Carreri on the show here not too long ago, where we talked about the issues related to mental health and what the airlines are doing or not doing in that area. And that was a fascinating interview, and we'll link it at the end of this video. The U.S. District Court Judge Amy Baggio sentenced Joseph Emerson, that's the pilot in question, Joseph Emerson, to credit for time served and supervised release for 3 years at a hearing in Portland, Oregon. Federal prosecutors had asked for 1 year in prison, while his attorneys had sought probation. You're thinking, geez, they only asked for 1 year? Well, that was what they were asking for, but he didn't even get that. All right. Pilots are not perfect. They are humans, she said. They are people, and all people need help sometimes. That's an accurate statement. There's nothing false about that, but pilots not being human and a pilot sitting on the jump seat trying to cut off both engines and kill himself, the crew, and everybody in the back of the airplane. Okay, hold on to that for a minute, because I've got some thoughts on that. Emerson was subdued, this is the pilot on the jump seat, by the flight crew after trying to cut the engines of a Horizon Air flight from Everett, Washington to San Francisco on October 22nd, 2023. While he was riding in an extra seat in the cockpit, known as the jump seat, the plane was diverted to Portland, where it landed safely with more than 80 people on board. So 83 people altogether on the airplane, plus himself. That would have been 84. I've sat on that very jump seat of that model airplane many, many times. It's not really comfortable. You're kind of confined, sitting there. Your feet are all kind of jammed up underneath of you. But right above you, right up here, are the two fire control levers. So the pilots, in order to shut off the engines in the case of a fire, the captain would have to reach up here and pull the fire handle out, or the first officer would have to reach up here and pull the fire handle out. So they're easily accessible, but they're right in front of the jump seater. I mean, they're literally a foot and a half away from your eyeballs. And so you can sit there and you can stare at them. Now, here's a little detail about those fire handles that make it so you can't inadvertently pull one and shut off an engine. If there's not an actual fire, the system won't allow you to pull those fire handles out. They won't come out. There's a detent that they won't come out. So he went and he reached up and he tried to grab those. Now there's an override, but it takes a little while to get the override to work to pull the handles out. And in that time frame that he was reaching up to grab and pull both of them, I'm assuming the co-pilot or the captain or both subdued him. They probably opened up the door and shoved this guy out and told the passengers, you deal with it, at that point where able-bodied passengers will come and subdue this guy. Now, why in the world would he do such a thing? Well, he gives some details in this article about what his mindset was. So the judge then says, well, he's a human and, he's not perfect. Yep, that's true. And we need to help some people sometimes. He was subdued. 80 people were on board. After his arrest, Emerson told police he was despondent over a friend's recent death. All right, I believe that. He had taken psychedelic mushrooms about 2 days earlier and hadn't slept in over 40 hours. Now, let's go back to the qualifications for the jump seat. Number one, if you're not qualified or you're not in a state of mind or physically able to operate an airplane, you shouldn't be sitting on a jump seat of an airplane. Because the jump seat is meant for pilots to go back and forth to work, not to just bounce around back and forth, going places throughout the system. Now, do pilots use a jump seat for those reasons? Yes, everybody does. But the technical definition of the jump seat is it's only meant for pilots commuting to work or commuting back home from work. So I don't know if he was going to work. If he was going to work and he had taken psychedelic mushrooms 2 days earlier, hadn't slept in 40 hours, and was despondent over a friend's death, he certainly shouldn't be operating an aircraft. Now, he did work for Alaska Air. He was immediately pulled off the schedule. He was fired from the company. And as part of the sentencing process here, you're going to find out he's not allowed to step foot on an airplane for a very, very long time. We'll be right back. But first, a quick word from our sponsor. A lot of you know I've been trying to take better care of myself, but when I started looking at vitamins and supplements, it felt like walking into a candy store where everything is green and judging me. Multivitamins, probiotics, gut support, immune boosters. How many pills does one retired airline captain have to take? So I did the smart thing. I asked Mrs. Captain Steeeve.
He came to me and said, I want to be healthier, but I don't want a bunch of bottles. So I started him on AG1. 1 scoop a day, and that's it. AG1 combines vitamins, minerals, probiotics, adaptogens, and whole food nutrients all in one. It supports gut health, immunity, and overall energy. And most importantly, he actually remembers to take it.
Most of the time.
Every morning. I supervise.
The travel packs are huge for me. I just throw a few in my bag and I'm set. No giant pill organizer, just 1 scoop and I'm done.
And I love that he's getting everything he needs in one place.
So if you want to try AG1, here's the deal. Head to the link in the description or scan the QR code to claim your free welcome kit. You'll get a bottle of vitamin D3 K2, a shaker bottle, and a sample pack of all 3 new AG1 flavors.
You're welcome, Internet.
She keeps me alive. I just fly the planes.
And thanks to AG1 for sponsoring today's video. Sponsors like this help us make more great content for you.
He hadn't slept for over 40 hours. He had said he believed he was dreaming at the time and that he was trying to wake himself by grabbing 2 red handles that would have activated the plane's fire suppression system and cut off fuel to its engines. So he said he thought he was dreaming. Of all the things he reached up to grab, he grabbed those 2 fire handles in front of him. I don't understand that at all. Let's go with the story here a little bit. Baggio, that's the judge, said it offers a cautionary tale worth telling beyond the confines of this case. Before she announced the sentence, Emerson spoke and said he regretted the harm he had caused to society. Okay, that's the first good step. The next one, very important. He said, I am not a victim. And you're right, my friend, you are not a victim. And so he got that right. I am here as a direct result of my actions. All right, he's owning it. That's important. If I'm the judge, that's important for me to hear. Somebody that says they're not a victim and they're taking ownership of their actions. That's what he told the court. He said, I can tell you that this very tragic event has forced me to grow as an individual. Okay, I'm glad you're growing as an individual. He hugged his attorney, and then multiple people got to speak on his behalf. Most notably among those was his wife. Now, your wife is always going to say complimentary things about you. And she said, I'm sorry for those who were impacted at this time, but I am extremely proud to be here with this man today, speaking about her husband, because the growth he has had from this terrible experience has only helped him, but benefited all that surrounded him. She said through tears, I just hope people realize that it's not necessarily the mistake, let's circle that word, mistake itself, but how you respond to it. He has responded with courage, strength, and a demonstration of extreme resilience. Sounds to me like she thinks her husband's a victim here. He's not. He just said he wasn't a victim, and it was his own actions. There's a difference between a mistake and a willful act, and I think that's probably what the judge is trying to determine here. Was this actually a mistake, or was this a willful act? Well, the despondent over your friend taking psychedelic mushrooms, not sleeping for 40 hours thing, and then getting on an airplane, that was not a mistake. That was a willful act. That was somebody that should have known better, but went ahead anyway, got on that airplane. Now, will it ever be determined, was he willfully grabbing those fire handles? You can call it a mistake. You can call it a willful act. That's up for you to decide what you think about this one. I know what I think. Emerson of Pleasant Hill, California, was charged in federal court with interfering with a flight crew. A state indictment in Oregon separately charged him with 83 counts of endangering other persons and 1 count of endangering an aircraft. He was released from custody pending trial in December of 2023. All right. He started a nonprofit organization called Pilot Health, a nonprofit. All right, more on that in a second. A court initially sentenced him to 50 days in jail this judge sentenced him to 50 days in jail with credit of time being served. So that was how long he spent in jail before he was released on probation the first time. 5 years of probation, 664 hours of community service, 8 hours for each person he endangered, and over $60,000 in restitution, nearly all of it to Alaska Air Group, who was really hurt directly by this. Half of the community service can be performed at his own nonprofit. So he gets to go to work every day, and half of his community time goes into what he's doing in his nonprofit. I don't know the first thing about his nonprofit. Let's assume for a minute it's a legitimate nonprofit that's trying to help pilots with mental illness and so forth. And it wasn't just something that he created to make it look good because he knew he was going to get sentenced someday and he was hoping to get a lighter sentence. Could be either one, but you be the judge of that. I'm not going to weigh in on that. He must also undergo assessments for drug and alcohol and mental health treatment, refrain from using any unprescribed drugs. That's always a good rule of thumb if you're an airline pilot, and keep at least 25 feet. And then they write here 7.6 meters jeez, away from operable aircraft unless he has permission from his probation officer. So he's not going to see the inside of an airplane for a very, very long time. All right. So what are my final conclusions on this guy and what he did? What he did was horrible. I believe that the jury is still out, no pun intended, on whether he was trying to commit suicide and take 83 people with him, which is absolutely reprehensible, or whether he was a guy that was just suffering from mental illness. It doesn't say that he had a history of that. It just said this one episode he was despondent. He took these psychedelic drugs 2 days ago, and then he hadn't slept for 40 hours. We got to take his word for that as well. Why he stepped foot in a cockpit, I have no idea, because with that chain of events, something bad or worse is going to happen. Every mishap in aviation or anywhere in life is not just one thing, it's a chain of events that led to the catastrophe, and the person or persons involved could have stopped that chain of events at any point in time had he gotten help for his despondency over his friend. Certainly the psychedelic mushrooms are not going to help with that, and he knows as a pilot he's not allowed to take that sort of stuff anyway. All right, it's illegal. And then to step foot in a cockpit just is kind of the icing on top of the cake. So this judge was, I think, more than fair, more than lenient with this guy. I would have sentenced him to all that community service time. Community service not in his own nonprofit. If he wants to run his own nonprofit, he can do that. But I think community service someplace else would have been good. And I probably would have given him a year in jail to sit around and think about his life choices. But there you go. So again, the judge's name is Amy Baggio, and Joseph Emerson, now no longer an airline pilot, is going to be on probation, and hopefully he gets all his community service done and learns a lesson. And the hope is that he helps other pilots in the long run. I hope his nonprofit is legit. Maybe I'll reach out and we'll try to have him on someday and talk about the work that he's doing. I think that would be an interesting interview. Well, now you know. I'm Captain Steeeve. Fly safe. All right, there have been other videos recently of pilots behaving poorly. Check out either one of these.